Hello, my name is Francis Escamilla. I am a senior process developer here at Clear Process Solutions. Welcome to CPS WebTips. For today's topic, we're going to be working with Automate Evolve tips and tricks, and we're going to discuss ways in how to create a reference data list. We're going to focus on creating a reference data list using the manual process and also using the Excel process. To create a reference data list manually gives you the options to create each column and each field manually one at a time. You can add columns, you can provide names, data types, and constraints as needed. So we're going to start with that process. Make sure we're in the right app. Within the app, go to Solutions, click on Reference Data List, click on Add Schema. Enter the name, category, and description for that reference data list. Click Next. In the Add Schema page, you will see the three options on how you can create a reference data list. The first one, which is already checked, is create manually, create from query, and create from Excel. We're going to stay with create manually. Here, we're going to start adding the columns to the schema one by one, entering the field name, selecting the field type, and then checking unique or required where it applies. Then I select add, enter the name, the field name. This one's going to be vendor ID. Because I'm dealing with IDs, I would like for it to be an integer number. And I will also select for it to be unique and required. Select add. Then my next one is going to be vendor name. And this for the field type, it's going to be a set of characters. I have the option of string and string max. If you select string, you have to now provide a number of characters for this field. I'm going to make it 30 characters. And I am going to leave unique and required blank. Select add. Next one. Description. It's going to be text. And I'm going to select string max. And if you notice, whenever you select string max, there is no required to provide a field length. Leave this alone, click add. And continue this process until I'm done adding all my fields or column names to the schema. Select next. On the mapper view, you have the option to change to which column everything's mapped, and you also, I'm going to leave that alone. Hit submit. And it's going to show that my schema here with the status of draft. Please note that a reference data list can only be used after it has been published. And once it's published, status turns into production. To publish the reference data list, under Actions, I'm going to click on this icon, three-dot icon, and select Publish. Whenever you publish, the schema page comes up, it gives you the option to manage the data on this reference data list either manually or through Excel. If you select yes on this question, then all the changes to the reference data list will be done through Excel, where you can add and update multiple records at a time. If you select no, then it's on a manual process. That is what we intend to demo for this scenario. So I'm going to select no. The workflow is blanked out. I hit published. And now my list has been created and it is in production status, meaning it is able to be used. However, when we select it, we see what are the options for that reference data list. We can view the history, copy the schema, export it, update the schema. Please note that you can only update the schema of a reference data list that is still under draft status. View the schema, view the data. There is no data. We only created the columns, the field names. We haven't added any data. And we select it again, and then we notice that there's an option to edit data. Here's where we will manually start adding values or records to our reference data list. One by one, I'm going to select D1, vendor name, select the checkbox to update, and keep going. And so on until I'm done adding records. Once I've added all the records I want to add, select Save Data, back to Solutions, view the data, and it shows my records. Now let's say I want to update this reference data list. Go back to Solutions, select the reference data list, hit Edit Data. You can either completely remove the row or you can edit the content. Click Save. I can add more. Click Update, save data, and my changes are now reflected on the reference data list as shown right here. This is the way that you create a reference data list using the manual process on the Evolve site, where you can change the contents of the reference data list within the Evolve site, and you can only, however, update one record at a time within the list. Another way that you can create a reference data list is using Excel. Creating the list from Excel enables you to create the schema from an existing Excel file where you already have set up your column names and you already set the schema that you want for that reference data list. For example, I have one already created here in Excel: inventory ID, name, description, unit price, stock price. These are my columns or field names for the schema that I want to use. So in order to create a reference data list using the Excel method, once again, within reference data list, click Add Schema, add the name. Category, I'm going to select inventory, description, provide a description. Select next. In the Add Schema page, I am going to select Create from Excel. Now it switches to View, where I can select the file that I mentioned and shown earlier. Open. It brings back all my fields, the headers, and provides a suggested field type. For unit price, since I do have decimal values in there, I'm going to switch from integer to decimal. I'm going to leave everything alone. Select next. On the mapper view, again, you can change the columns to which each field is mapped to. I am going to leave that alone. Select submit. And my vendors list is now created. As mentioned earlier, we have to publish it. Here's a draft. Select publish. Now, instead of what we did in our previous example, we are going to continue to manage the contents of this reference data list through it using Excel. I'm going to select yes, select the workflow type. I'm going to select no data review process, in this case, meaning that I will not require any approvals. If you select the second option, which is the one-step review and post, meaning that you create it, somebody approves it, and then the file runs review and post separately, meaning after the reviewer approves, the submitter runs the file. And then custom, you can provide whatever custom workflow process you want to do. In this case, I'm going to just stick with no data review process, leave everything blank, and hit publish. What you're going to notice in the difference between the list that I created using the manual method, the one that I created using Excel, I no longer have the option to edit data. The way to update an Excel created an Excel managed reference data list is through Excel. So I'm going to open Excel, open a blank workbook, click on Studio tab, log on to Studio. You need to ensure that you have Studio installed on your computer. Give it a second or two. Now that you're logged in, ensure that you are pointing to the correct app. If you're not, you can just simply switch app. Once you're in the correct app, go to the Evolve tab and look for that template that was generated for the schema that we just recently created. Go to My Templates. Search for reference data templates. It will, since it's the last one that we created, it will show up at the top normally. Select the template that we want to work with. And it will open the template. If I had any data on this reference data list, it would show it once we open up the template. Since we have no data in, it shows as blank. I'm going to mass update the list or mass create the content of the list by copying and pasting. After I copied and pasted all my data, I'm going to select the Evolve tab, the Studio tab, and hit Run. On the file name, for best practice, we recommend to use today's date and change the name to keep track of the updates. So I'm going to use today's date of 5. Select OK. Now we got a message confirming that the data has been saved. It was successful, had no errors. Select OK. We can confirm the data has been added by going to View Data and seeing the content. And as you notice, I was able to do several records at a time. To update an existing list that is being managed through Excel, follow the same process. Open Excel. Go to Studio. Make sure you're logged on to the right app. Go to Evolve. Open the template. My Templates. Reference Data Templates. Select the template I want to work with. Seems I had something open that I need to close. Try again. Click on Studio, log on. Log in with the correct username and password. Okay. Again, validate that you're looking at the correct app. Go to the Evolve tab. Select My Templates, Reference Data Templates. Select the template. And now it's going to show us the current content within the reference data list. If I want to change any of these values, if I want to add more records, once I'm done making all the changes, click over to Studio, select Run, give it a different name. I'm going to leave that alone for right now. It will give you a message letting you know it ran successfully. Close all my Excel files. Go look at the reference data list we just updated through Excel. Select View Data. And we can see that it has been modified. So we just covered 2 ways to create reference data lists. Normally, we would recommend you do the second method where you work through Excel, which gives you the flexibility of managing, updating, and adding multiple records at a time. However, if you want more hands-on control of the fields and you don't mind changing one record at a time, you can do it using the manual process. Another way, which we did not cover, is the create from query. The create from query option, which we're not going to discuss today, gives you the option to create a schema using a query created from Studio. You would go into Automate Studio, run a query against SAP, which will give you certain data back. The columns of the results in that script will become the names of the fields in the schema. So when you say create from query and you select files, you will select the query that was created in Studio and then follow the normal steps that we shown from the previous 2 methods. However, we're not going to go into that. Just wanted to show you that was the third option. Now we have covered ways on how to create and manage reference data lists. If you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to us. Our contact information is shown. If you want to follow us and see more of the topics that we have web tips for, please, you can subscribe at clearprocesssolutions.com/webtips. Again, thank you for your time. Have a nice day.